let's pick up a discussion on the Asian markets. We were talking about how perhaps the gains that we're seeing today may not be sustainable. The Chinese banks, though, there are signs that they may be in trouble as well. Is that perhaps a sign that we shouldn't be looking into buying banks at this point in time?
I don't think so. I think that the Chinese government, they've raised reserve requirements 3 times. They're coming out with statements saying to write off non-performing loans. So they're taking action to this. As the story that 27% of the loans might not be recoverable is concerning. But I think China's government and regulators they've learned a bit from what the U.S. went through and from what Europe went through. So I think actually, on a pullback, it might be a buying opportunity.
What's the biggest risk, though?
So the biggest risk is that the revenue generation from these infrastructure projects aren't enough to support. And, is 27% the right number, or could it go higher?
Looking at the Asian markets as a whole, it's been pretty volatile. What's the trend you're expecting going forward, perhaps in the second half? How's it looking?
I think the second half is going to take a lead, from U.S. markets, everything else. I mean, obviously, people worry about China cooling down, and if it does cool down a little bit, that's actually a good thing, because then people worry about a bubble bursting is off the table. But I think the second half of the year is going to be focused more on what happens in Europe and what happens in the U.S. And the markets, we're going into August. Trading volumes get light. There's usually a lot more volatility. So I think the next month or so you'll see markets moving, but I think the real direction will come from the U.S. or Europe. So
in terms of investment strategy, what should investors be doing?
I think, it depends on what sectors they're interested in, but I think my feeling is that if there's opportunity to think, if there are corrections in certain sectors or performance or stocks, it might be a buying opportunity.
Any names, Steve?
So I'm not a stock picker, so I'll leave that to the experts. But I do think I am bullish for the second half. We've seen issuance in the first half of there's been up 67% of China IPOs versus the first half last year, and I think that trend will continue as well.
All right, Steve Bernstein joining us here in Hong Kong. Thank you so much for that.